The automatic doors slid open with a whoosh as Ryan Carter walked into the Walmart on the edge of town, his hands tucked casually into the pockets of his hoodie. At 38, he was a man of incredible wealth, yet he moved through life as if he were invisible. He didn't like the spotlight, preferring to blend in with ordinary people whenever he could. On this particular evening, he wandered the aisle slowly, watching families, couples, and individuals making choices that reflected not only what they needed, but what they could afford. He had always been fascinated by the silent stories told in grocery stores. As he strolled past the cleaning supplies and turned toward the baby aisle, something caught his eye. A young woman, no older than 26, stood by the shelves with a small boy sitting in her cart. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and the exhaustion on her face was unmistakable. She picked up a can of baby formula and studied the price tag carefully, her lips tightening. The toddler reached toward the can, babbling softly, but she held it close to her chest, her brow furrowing as she dug into her purse for her wallet. Ryan slowed his steps, pretending to browse the shelves nearby, but his attention was fixed on her. He watched as she flipped open her worn wallet, counting a few crumpled bills and some coins. Her shoulders slumped as reality set in. For a long second, she held the formula in her hands, looking between the can and her son, her eyes glistening. Then, with a shaky sigh, she placed it back on the shelf. The little boy whimpered, reaching for it again, but she stroked his cheek gently, whispering something that Ryan couldn't hear but could feel in his heart. He felt a pang of sadness strike him, one that dug deeper than he expected. In his life, Ryan had seen wealth change people, lift them or destroy them, but he never forgot his own roots, the days when his single mother had to make the same painful choices, milk or rent, heat or food. He remembered the look in her eyes, the quiet desperation masked by a smile she tried to keep for his sake. Watching this young mother broke something open inside him. He couldn't turn away. Not when the scene in front of him mirrored his own past so vividly. She picked up a small pack of diapers next, once again checking the price before clutching it tightly against her chest. Her lips moved as though she was calculating, her hand pressing against the bills in her wallet as if stretching them might make them more. The toddler kicked his legs, his innocent laughter a sharp contrast to the heavy weight hanging in the air around them. Ryan wanted to walk over right then, to tell her not to worry, that he would buy everything she needed. But he held himself back. He didn't want to frighten her or make her feel ashamed. Instead, he lingered a few feet away, pretending to be interested in a row of toys on the lower shelf. He watched her carefully, memorizing the quiet strength in her eyes as she straightened her shoulders and pushed the cart forward. She wasn't crying, though it was clear she wanted to. She wasn't complaining, though the weight she carried was obvious. She was simply enduring, moving forward for the sake of the little boy now playing with a stuffed animal he had grabbed. Ryan admired her resilience, even as it broke his heart. As she headed toward the checkout lines, Ryan followed discreetly, pushing his own empty cart to blend in. He saw her choose the shortest line, fumbling with her items. The diapers and a few cheap groceries lay on the belt. Bread, a carton of eggs, and a gallon of milk. No formula. Ryan's chest tightened as he realized she had chosen survival basics over what her child truly needed. The cashier greeted her warmly, but she responded with a weary smile, already pulling coins from her wallet to cover the cost. Ryan caught the sound of her apologizing softly to the cashier, embarrassed by the slow process of counting out change. The cashier, kind and patient, reassured her, but Ryan could see the flush of shame on her face. The boy in the cart reached for the candy near the register, and the mother gently shook her head, whispering a promise for later. Ryan felt his throat tighten as he watched the scene unfold, such a simple interaction, yet loaded with the quiet tragedy of sacrifice and struggle. The transaction finished, and the young woman gathered her small bag of groceries quickly, thanking the cashier before hurrying toward the exit. Ryan paid for a bottle of water he had picked up just to stay inconspicuous, then walked out a short distance behind her. The cold night air greeted them as she pushed her cart toward an old dented sedan parked under the dim glow of a flickering light. She opened the trunk, carefully setting the few groceries inside before lifting her son from the cart. Ryan stood. For a moment, his heart pounding, knowing he couldn't let her drive away without doing something. As she buckled her little boy into his car seat, Ryan took a deep breath and stepped forward. He still wasn't sure what he would say, but he knew this was the moment. The sight of her placing the groceries with such care, her shoulders heavy with silent burdens, was too much to bear. She had given up the formula out of necessity, but he wasn't about to let her leave empty-handed. And with that thought, Ryan reached into the bag he carried, his resolve firm. The decision had been made. This mother's story would not end in quiet heartbreak tonight. Ryan walked slowly toward the dented sedan, the cold air biting against his face, but he hardly noticed. His thoughts were consumed with the image of the young mother leaving behind the baby formula. He tightened his grip on the grocery bag in his hand, the weight of the can inside, reminding him why he couldn't stay silent. He took a steadying breath as he approached her, determined not to scare her, but to show that there was kindness left in the world. She turned suddenly, surprised by his presence, and instinctively clutched her purse to her chest. He lifted his hand quickly, his voice calm and gentle. "I'm sorry to startle you," he said, keeping his tone soft. "I think you forgot something." Her brows furrowed as she looked down at the bag he carried. When he pulled out the can of baby formula and held it out to her, she froze. Her eyes flickered with recognition, and immediately she shook her head, taking a step back. "No," she whispered, her voice breaking. I can't. I don't have the money for that." Her little boy, strapped into the car seat, reached out his tiny hand curiously toward the can. Ryan's smile was warm, almost fatherly. "It's already taken care of," he assured her. "It's yours. You don't need to worry about it." She blinked at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears as she looked between him and the formula. Her lips trembled as though she wanted to argue, but no words came. Finally, she shook her head again, whispering, "Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me." Her voice was filled with both gratitude and suspicion, a woman who had clearly learned not to expect kindness from strangers. "I don't need to know you to see you're doing your best," Ryan replied softly. "I grew up watching my mom make the same choices you just did. She used to go without so I could have what I needed. I'll never forget that. Tonight, I just wanted to make sure your little one doesn't have to go without." He placed the can gently on the edge of her trunk and stepped back, giving her space. The young mother's hands shook as she reached for it, finally holding it against her chest as though it was the most precious gift she had ever been given. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she whispered, "Thank you. You don't know what this means to me." Ryan felt a lump rise in his throat. He wanted to say more, to explain who he really was, but he decided against it. This moment wasn't about him or about wealth. It was about her dignity and the simple act of helping without strings attached. He only smiled and said, "Just promise me you'll keep going. Your boy needs you, and from where I stand, you're already doing an incredible job." She laughed, shakily, brushing her tears away with the back of her hand. Her son giggled from the car seat, reaching again toward the can in her arms. She kissed the top of his head and looked back at Ryan, her expression softening into something stronger than gratitude. "I won't forget this," she said firmly. "I felt so alone lately, like the whole world was against me. But tonight you reminded me that there are still good people out there." Her voice carried a mixture of relief and wonder, as if she had finally been given permission to breathe again. Ryan simply nodded, feeling humbled by her words. They stood there for a moment, under the flickering parking lot light, two strangers bound by an unexpected connection. Ryan could see the resilience in her eyes now, the determination shining brighter than the exhaustion. She wasn't weak or broken. She was fighting a battle most people couldn't see, and she was winning it in her own way, one day at a time. He admired her more than he could say. As she loaded the last grocery bag into her trunk, she turned to him once more and whispered, "God bless you." The sincerity in her tone made his chest ache. Ryan raised a hand in farewell, his smile calm and reassuring. "Take care of yourself, both of you," he said, before turning to walk back toward his car parked a few spaces away. He glanced over his shoulder one last time, watching as she carefully buckled her son in and started the old sedan. The engine sputtered to life, and she drove away into the night, her taillights glowing like beacons of hope in the darkness. Ryan stood there for a while, the empty parking lot stretching around him, feeling more fulfilled than he had in months.